Hey everybody, Adam Savage in my cave. Hi, much better. Hi, careful viewers of this space know that about a year and a half ago, I rejiggered that whole space to become more of my shop rather than a display and hangout space. And I'm very happy with that change. In order to facilitate using that space, I moved my old dining room table, which is actually like a florist's assembly table that we bought at the Alameda Flea Market 20 years ago. I broke it out of storage and I put it in here as a long work table. But it's no good. It does not work here as a workbench. Plus, I want to keep it nice, relatively nice for a future, I don't know, maybe we'll have a weekend cabin someday. A boy can dream. So I need a better workbench. And because that is likely to be the space in which I do my sewing and soft goods work, I have decided that what I need is a 40 by 72 inch fabric layout table. I could have gone a little bit longer. I could have gone with different dimensions, but after careful consideration, those are the dimensions I think that give me the most ability to lay stuff out. It's going to have a surface of UHMW, which stands for ultra high molecular weight. UHMW is a lot of your white chopping blocks are UHMW. It's an ideal cutting surface. And I bought a 1/2 inch thick sheet of it to be the surface of this workbench. And I'm going to add in a secret feature to it. That's not going to be secret at all. It's just going to be a really, really cool addition to it. But there are a couple of aspects of making a workbench in my space that are different than making a tool stand. This workbench needs to be one that I can pull up to. So I need its interior to allow me to kind of saddle up right to the table so I can work on it. I can't quite do that on this table or on the other workbench in here. So I need one in which I can do that. So I'm laying out its bottom carriage right now. Then I'm going to work out the uprights. And I think this is going to have a sort of wide pair of diagonally supported cross beams at either end, but that it narrows in the middle so that you get more room under the table. That's the goal. Yeah, we're just going to assemble this thing. And then once we get to the point at which it starts to take form, I'll tell you more about its features and pieces and parts I want to exist in there. Okay. So yeah, I'm just doing a little layout. I know, I've subjected you to almost a single shot for this whole build, and I apologize, but I've built a lot of workbenches. So what's happening right now is I'm about to lay on the official top of this workbench, which will be a large piece of basically high-end cutting board material, otherwise known as UHMW. Those letters stand for ultra high molecular weight, and they describe a plastic that comes in, I think, black and white and maybe some other colors. UHMW is a plastic that has a very specific property in that the harder you push on it, the slipperier it gets. So this is used for things like the slides on your refrigerators and furniture feet. And I was looking up cutting surfaces for a big layout table, and I was thinking, I was thinking I want a cutting surface. And I know that you can get the cutting mats with a grid on them. And I didn't like the idea of seeing the grid. And then I thought, wait, what about UHMW? How much is a big sheet of UHMW? And it's not prohibitively expensive. A 4x8 sheet was like $250 for a half-inch sheet. I feel like that's a reasonable deal for a lifetime workbench. But what are these? Ooh, these are lighting panels, everybody. These are meant to light the back of your marbled countertops if you're that kind of fancy. It's a particular kind. And I like that fancy so much, I am going to do it under my white UHMW table so that the last quarter of this table can be a tracing table for patterns. I'm so excited. I know, I didn't move the camera at all. And what are these? Oh, that's why those are there. But I've got a beautiful drawer. I've got storage underneath. I've got the ability to sit up right next to this table, which I really dig. It's low. I made it low. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I have to accommodate for this stuff. And I can do that. I can do that by either routing into this sheet like a 1/4 inch, or I can just take some 1/4 inch stock and build up around it. And that's what I'm doing. Just slowly gonna add the 1/4 inch stock around here. So, there we go. I'm going to be ripping some plywood, and I wanted to mention one thing about shop safety. Ripping strips of wood on the table saw, like dozens and dozens or hundreds and hundreds, is one of the more dangerous things you can do. And the reason it's dangerous is because you can zone out. When you're a young maker, you're often just gauging the danger by how dangerous things feel, and that is a reasonable marker as you're entering a frame. But once you're in that frame, things can be dangerous and you don't know that they're dangerous. For instance, ripping on a table saw is the kind of place that you can zone out and forget what you're doing. And one tiny lapse of attention can take away digits from you. It's happened to people I know. So institutional knowledge is the knowledge that there are some things that don't feel dangerous but are, and you've got to keep your wits about you. And a table saw is one of those things that is always dangerous no matter how safe it feels to you. Yes, I'm talking to you, and by you I mean me. The other thing I'm going to do to this table is I'm not going to glue down these standoffs. I am actually just going to tack them down in case I want to rejigger this table later into future. I am leaving that option open. So there's several places I have not glued onto this construction so that I may do that. Just like that. Oh, I see. I missed one.
I'm so happy.
All right.
Yep. Let's do it. Positive is white. There you go.
Look at that. Damn, brother. I love that. All right, let's test the power supply itself.
Truth and beauty.
now, things are going really well. I'm super happy. I'm going to make some special way of holding my T-squares on this table. That will be a special thing. But I also want to be able to I also want to be able to. You cannot be square. I don't think you are square anymore. But we will see. We will test you. I'm going to take a piece of this green felt and install it into this drawer, and then this drawer can house a lot of the tools I may need for layout and tracing and the other things that I will do at this beautiful table. So for right now, what we've got is we want a piece of felt. Let's see, where is the end of this? There it is. Yes, there we go. Right, let's see here. We've got okay, the work table is done. I want to take you on a tour of its main features and of some improvements that may still be to come. But first and foremost of its main feature is this. I made it so my legs can fit underneath it and I can pull all the way up to it. That is super ideal for close-up work. I don't have another workbench in the cave that gets me that. And in fact, in order to have the most amount of leanability, I made this 2 inches shorter than my sewing machine. It's only 31.5 inches off the ground, but that gives me a huge amount of like close-up to be able to do cutting work. And also it allows me to lean all the way across here for fabric work. And I actually allowed for that table cutoff on all 3 sides. There's this side. I mean, my knees are hitting my my T-square storage here. Very vital tool. T-square, I have a nice location for storing both of them. That's the only thing that inhibits my knees back here, but it's not that bad. Same thing back here. I can pull all the way up to the table. And then, yeah, the lights are my favorite part of this, that this becomes a tracing table. And this morning I added the last part of this, which is a dimmer. So it gets really bright. And these are not complicated. This is a 24-volt dimmer I picked up for like less than $10 on Amazon. We'll include a link in the description. This is awesome. I plan to use this for doing pattern transferring. Actually, let me just show you. Okay, so I have a classic pattern issue here. I have full-size, correctly sized copies of a glove pattern for a moon glove. And before I had a light table, my only other option would be to cut this out and trace it. But now with a light table, I can turn this on, I can still see it, and I can draw it. I have had a couple of light tables in my collection before, but having to go, basically every time I needed them, it was like 2 years since I last used it. And every time I went looking for the power supply, I couldn't find it. So it was sort of the epiphany I had about this table, was to build a light table inside of it. And I can't remember if I told you this, but these light panels are for lighting the underside of your marbled countertops if you're that kind of fancy. But for us makers, this is the kind of fancy I'm using it for. I just love being able to do this. Also, I've already been using this table on and off for the last about 4 weeks. And I have to say, as a cutting surface, UHMW is amazing. And to be perfectly clear, this piece that covers this whole table was about $225, which I view as a completely reasonable tabular surface expense for something as mission critical as a fabric layout table like this. Okay, more features, couple more features. We've got the drawer for tools. I made it specifically deep because I wanted to be able to store lots of tools in here. I found my other flat file shelves that I made didn't go deep enough, so I made this one much deeper. And the last thing that I plan to add to this, I made it 40 inches wide, not 36. I wanted more than 3 feet, but I didn't want the full 4 feet. And I have found a 40-inch roll of brown craft paper, and that is gonna live right there. It's gonna live right there so that I can, when I need to, pull up craft paper and cover this entire table with craft paper. Yeah! That's the last part of this. Craft paper shows up in a week or so, but this is enough to show you for the, yeah, I think this is enough to show you for the full layout of the tool. I got to tell you, it took me like a month to come up with the size and the height of this. Those were the most important parts of integrating this bench into my work process and allowing more versatility. Like the long table we had in here, a couple of things that were terrible about it. It was too shallow to do any substantive work, but its painted surface, while gorgeous, made it impossible to see anything on it. So I lost tons of parts on it because I couldn't see them. It was too much visual cacophony. I needed a nice clean surface that was like, the expanse of white makes me want to clear this table. And like, cleaning the shop at the end of a day could be as simple as I make sure this table is clean, because when I come in, as long as I have a single work surface, I feel like, you know, the world's my oyster. I would love to hear what improvements you might make to such a thing, or what your dream workbench layout might be in terms of materials, tools, versatility, extra functions it might have. I will tell you that I have been considering purchasing a dentist's or surgeon's lamp to hang down from the ceiling to allow me a versatile super hot light source. And I may still do that, but that's not a workbench build. That's a lighting build, and we'll cover that somewhere else. Thank you guys for joining me. This has been one of the more satisfying builds I've done in years. Yeah, no, that's not going too far to say. That's one of the more satisfying builds I have done in years. I'm really delighted with what this adds to my process. And I totally forgot to just point out the last thing about this is the runner that runs along the inside, that's just for storage. for current projects. And I learned that I like tables to have understorage, but the trick was making the understorage narrow so that, again, my legs could fit all the way underneath. Okay, yeah, thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to tell you about some brand new merch we have. One of my favorite things we've ever produced are our demerit badges, which are scout badges for messing things up, as we all do. They're best sellers, and we started out selling them as patches, then we moved to stickers, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have demerit badge magnets for your fridge or your machines, and we started out with a 4-pack of our greatest hits. You can find these right now at tested-store.com.